Welcome to Silva Linings Playbook, the podcast no one asked for and hardly anyone's watching. We're talking Knicks Spurs. Let's go. All right, Game 3, Knicks and Spurs back at Madison Square Garden. It was, as I said in my last episode, I said it was a must-win for the Knicks. You did not want to give this young, talented Spurs team any glimmer of hope. And the Knicks gave the Spurs a glimmer of hope. Again, it was another close game. I also said yesterday if it was a close game like it was in Game 2 that the Spurs were going to come out on top. The Spurs came out on top. I also said that the referees were key to this game, and they needed to get this game under control and call it tight, but not overcompensate. Well, they didn't do that. It was a very rough game. There was lots of fouls, and much like Game 2, there was a huge foul shot discrepancy. The Spurs had way more free throw attempts than the Knicks did. That's not saying that the Knicks didn't foul as often and just got bad calls. The Knicks fouled a lot and got called for it. The Spurs fouled a lot and the refs kept the whistles in their pockets, much like they did in Game 2. And the example I wrote down, I meant to talk about it the last time, was in Game 2, the Knicks in the second half didn't have any free throws until there was 2 minutes and 37 seconds left in the fourth quarter of that game. And that was only because of the challenge of the foul against OG Anunoby when he was taking a three-pointer and Julian Champagnie yanked his arm and fouled him. And the refs in live action didn't call that, but the Knicks challenged it and got a foul call. And that was the only reason they got that foul call in Game 2. So Mike Brown, in his post-game press conference, talked a lot about the Knicks and the foul discrepancy. And, he's working the refs for the next game to pay attention and keep their eyes open. So we'll see if that does anything. But he could have said that after Game 1, and he could have said that after Game 2. I mean, last night, Victor Wembanyama took Jalen Brunson by the head and threw him to the ground in the first half. Nothing. And Wembanyama's laughing at Brunson when Brunson came back at him, pointed in the face, whatever he said, made Wemby laugh and push him again. There was so much aggressive fouling and hits. And there was a call later in the game when Stephon Castle ran over Brunson, I guess at the end of the first half, when Castle ran over Jalen Brunson, got a charge call. The Knicks challenged it, looking to upgrade it to a flagrant, which I think it should have been because he kind of lowered his shoulder like he was trying to score a touchdown in an NFL game at the goal line. That to me seems aggressive. He didn't try to go around Jalen Brunson. He literally went through him. And again, they just said it was a common foul. There's something going on. In the first game, Scott Foster was not making calls, and the fact that I know a referee's named Scott Foster is exactly what the problem is with the refs. I don't want to know the refs' names when I'm watching a game. I don't want to know the umpires' names at a baseball game. I don't want to know the ref's name in a football game. They shouldn't be involved and tilting the game one way or the other by their lack of commitment to making a foul call. I think these guys are leaning too much on this replay, and they don't want to make a big call that's going to cost the game. But by not making calls, it cost teams games. Both ways. I mean, the Spurs could have won either of the first two games if the refs called things differently, although they did have the free throw attempt advantage in both of those games, as well as the third game. They just weren't making their shots. So the Spurs had their chances. I mean, literally, I'm not being unrealistic here. The Spurs easily could have won all three of these games. So the Knicks, I'm never feeling comfortable watching the games, which is why, shout out again to my brother-in-law George, why I'm not willing to get so excited before the Knicks win their 4th game in this series, because anything can happen. I mean, New York baseball fans, remember when the Yankees were up 3-0 on the Red Sox and looks like they're going to the World Series and blew it? Well, Derek Jeter was at the game last night. They showed him a bunch on the television broadcast. He knows you can have a 3-0 lead and wind up losing a series. So maybe in a way it's good for the Knicks to have a loss, although it was close. Maybe they'll pick it up and refocus. I felt their defense was a little bit lacking last night, but again, the refs were making calls, so the Knicks had to maybe not challenge plays as hard as they had been in games 1 and 2. But like I said, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, I said these refs let this series get out of control in the first 2 games. Last night was no better. It got worse. And now what do you do? What do you do? Do you start calling a tight game? Then you're going to have both coaches on both teams saying, well, where was this in the first 3 games? So the players are going to be getting roughed up in the rest of the series because this is a very aggressive, very physical series, and it can't change now because we're now 3 games in, and they've set the precedent to allow these players to rough each other up so much. These teams are very close. I mean, most of their games in the regular season, other than the very last one, were close and competitive. And, the Spurs can beat the Knicks and vice versa. So my problem is now that the Spurs won this game 3, and them being so young, as I said yesterday, they play this game on emotions because they don't have the experience. So now they are up. They lost a close game. They felt they could have won game 2. Now they won a close game in game 3. Now what happens? Do the Knicks come out flat and the Spurs roll them in game 4? I think that could happen. Especially now that the Knicks are starting to complain in the media about the fouls. As Shaq said in the post-game show, Phil Jackson told him once, champions don't cry over fouls, or, something along those lines. I butchered it. I had it memorized before I turned the camera on, but I've lost that train of thought. Shaq had a comment about that, he was complaining after a game in the finals that he didn't get any calls, and he said, champions don't complain. And the Knicks need to not complain right now. Just, this is the way this is. They've got to be smart. They've got to stop having these reach-in calls and these, getting their hands caught in the cookie jar, as Richard Jefferson keeps saying on the broadcast. They've got to play physical and smart and not get into this emotional battle and stop whining about foul calls. You're not getting them. You're not getting the calls. So, just play the game. Know you're not getting the calls. And just remind the refs when they're not calling it on you, when they call one on the Spurs, to maybe wake them up. But in a nice way, as best you can. I just don't... I've said this series is a 6 or 7 game series from the beginning. It's now definitely going to be at least 6 games. Will either of these teams run off multiple games in a row of wins now? I don't know. I think this is going to go back and forth now. But game 4 is now a must win for the Knicks. You cannot give up the advantage you stole from them by winning the first 2 games. You cannot lose this game and be back to basically 0-0, and now it's a 3-game series, and the Spurs have home court advantage. We saw what happened with the Spurs in OKC. This team, when they get that emotion on their side, and they get that mojo going, they get confident, and they're super talented and are going to be in this championship conversation for the next several years as long as they can keep them together under the salary cap. This team is dangerous and they are good, and they don't know they shouldn't be here. And at this point, they have earned it. And let's stop talking about how young and inexperienced they are, and let's start talking about how talented the Spurs are and how dangerous this team truly is at all 5 spots and their bench. Okay? The Knicks last night, Mikal Bridges had an off game. Landry Shamet didn't have his three-point shooting, explosions as he's had in the last 13 games that they've been winning. It's a different game now. The Knicks are in a real fight. This isn't going to be a cakewalk. Anybody who thought it was going to be a sweep, that's over. So let's worry about winning and playing this game the right way. I think that's what the Knicks need to focus on. I think that's what the fans need to focus on. Let's not have any more distractions of presidents being invited to the game and blocking down the whole street and poisoning the energy in the building. That's not going to happen in Game 4. So let's get back to basketball. Let's fans support the Knicks. Forget all the shenanigans on the outside. These players have worked their asses off. It's time to come to the building at MSG and bring the energy and lift these guys up. The Knicks are going to come back. There's no reason to think that they're going to lose this series now because they lost this one game, but they could lose this next game if they're not careful. That's what I'm worried about, because now the Spurs know it. They know they can win. And now if the Knicks fans are starting to have doubts and that energy's not in the building to help them, it could be a problem. Especially the Spurs have gotten off to fast starts in all 3 of these games. The Knicks have always been able to come back. And at the end of the first half, when they went on a 10-1 run and were up by 7 at halftime, you look like, oh, it's the same sort of script from the first 2 games. But the Spurs, they got desperate in the second half. They started playing aggressive. The refs put their whistles in their pocket, and the game was close, and the Spurs pulled it out just as I thought they might if they were in another close game situation. The Knicks need to pull one of their dominant games where they just tear away and pull the hearts out of this young Spurs team, and then have them have the uphill battle of having to win 3 games in a row. Right now, they still have 1 game to lose, and they could come back, but we're getting to the point where you can't let these Spurs have any more hope. And Game 4 is going to be crazy because the refs have lost control of this series, and the Spurs are really talented. And I've been saying it all along to anyone who asks me. That's the team I thought was going to be in the finals from the Western Conference. I watched 50 of their games this year, and I'm telling you, they are good, and they're getting better. And Dylan Harper is a superstar. He's turned into a superstar in these playoffs. Stephon Castle, very comfortable playing in Madison Square Garden after playing at UConn and being in the Big East tournaments there. Julian Champagnie, he hasn't really shown up yet in this first game, but he played at St. John's. That was his home court. He's very comfortable in that building, and he can shoot 3-pointers. The Knicks, there's a lot to worry about, and you don't have to mention Wembanyama. He is a one-of-a-kind, and if he's around that basket, there's no way you can stop his offense. He made a couple of 3-pointers last night. Again, I'm rooting for him to continue to take 3-pointers because it is not what the Spurs need. They need him around the basket, getting rebounds, tapping in missed shots, and dunking over people and just dominating inside because he's a foot taller than everybody guarding him. So it's an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying. You can't guard him. He's just unique. He's a unique player, and we're witnessing something he's going to be the dominant player in the league for the next 10, 15 years if he stays healthy. This series is not over. Knicks fans, Bring the energy in Game 4. Knicks, forget the refs. Play the game. Do what you know how to do. Focus. Move the ball. Play defense. Play fast. And you will win Game 4. But if the Spurs win Game 4, Knick fans, then it's time to worry. Then it's time to worry. But if the Knicks lose Game 4, it's time to worry. But just take a deep breath. Everything's still okay. There's still 4 games left to go. You're not going to get a sweep. Just bring the energy, bring the support, and don't give up on the Knicks. But watch out for those Spurs. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. Let's see what happens in Game 4. It's a must-win for both of these teams. If the Spurs lose it, they're probably losing this series. If the Knicks lose Game 4, we're going 7 games. It's going to be crazy, folks. Let's enjoy the ride. This is a very competitive series. That's all we could ask for. Let's hope it doesn't get out of control and we don't get anybody getting in fights and getting suspended, but because it's really physical. Let's watch how Game 4 starts out. The refs might have quick whistles at the beginning of Game 4 to try to tamp down the physical nature of these games, but we'll see. All right, I'm rambling again, as I often do. Thank you for spending time with me. Thanks for watching. Hope you're enjoying this NBA Finals so far. I will talk to you guys after the next game. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll check you guys in the next one.